and welcome to Impact Africa, our online boldness program, where we get to have conversation with diverse people who are impacting lives and communities positively. My name is Kemi Akiode Adebayo, aka Mama K. And in today's program, I'm so blessed and honored to have a selfless, hardworking, beautiful, smart, I will go on lady who does so much and passionate, about the community we live in. Her name is Caroline Peters, and she is the founder director of Callas Community Projects and Callas Foundation, which is another name they're known for. So my sister, welcome to the program, sis. How are you?
I am good. Thank you, Sis Kemi, and thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry I took such a long time to be available.
I know you're busy. You're a very, very busy woman. So we will just go right into it. So please tell me about yourself. Okay. Who is Caroline Peters? Where were you born? Family background, anything you want to share with us, and your career up to just before Callas Community Project here. Okay, thank you.
Just, I'm going to be brief. So I was born, I'm the youngest of 9 siblings.
9
siblings, yeah. In the olden days, we had big families. And so, I was born,
same father.
Same mother, same father, 9 of us. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm the youngest of 9, and I always think I'm more bold than the others because I had 8 of them to teach me. I had 8 of them that went before me, and 8 of them, So I'm the youngest of 9 siblings. 2 of my sisters are now late, and I've lost a brother. So there's 6 of us left here.
Okay.
But I was born in this house that I'm living in currently.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that fact.
Yes,
wow.
Yes.
So how is it like for you? So you're in Bridgetown, the area you live in is Bridgetown. So you were born in Bridgetown, and in the same house you've lived in for, and I'm sure you're well over 50. How is that for you, growing up through the times of your parents, and how has this changed, even in the area?
The area has changed a lot, but I also want to tell you, I didn't live here always. So at the age of 19, I moved away from home. My mom passed away, and I went to live with my older sister. And then about 2001, I was away a number of years. I moved away from the area. And, many times when I look back, then I think we thought we're going to move a step up. I lived in Muizenberg. I lived in a big home. I was married. I had many things going for me. And I was working in the corporate sector. And then in 2001, when my father passed away, I was divorced. And my father, I inherited the family home from my father.
Right.
And at the time, all I felt was I'm going backwards if I'm coming back to the community. Because now I'm living in Muizenberg, I'm living in a big mansion, and I drive 2 smart cars, and how am I going to fit back into this community? But this was God's plan for my life. And if I look back now, I see the hand of God in all of this, When I had to come back here, in fact, my daughters did not even want to move back to the area because, as you know, this is typical community area that I live in, and we lived in the suburbs, and they were born and raised in suburbs, and to move to the community was daunting on them. Yes, it's a big change. My daughters couldn't understand that people just knock at your door and ask for things, but that's how I was grown. I grew up with this culture of family, of community. They did not. And so it took them a long time. Even I lived here with myself and Zoe. My youngest daughter was about 3 at the time when we moved here. Yes, 18 years ago. And for her, it was fine because she was young. But then for the other 2, they stayed on in the suburbs, living with my brother for a year before they decided to come move in with me.
Really?
Yes, yes. So it was really difficult to make that transition for them.
And how have they been now that they finally when they now finally took the
They are now part of this community. They married men out of this community.
Wow, that's interesting. So basically,
Yes.
you were called home,
Yes.
back home. So you lost your mom, lost your dad, inherited the home, used to live in a big home in Muizenberg, and so on. And then you got divorced and then came back. So career-wise, where were you working? You said corporate world.
Yes. So in the corporate world, my last corporate job was with Advitech Consultants. And then I worked in manufacturing, then I worked in life skills at the time. It's a big consulting firm I used to work for. And my last job was for the Cape Argus. And, so after that, so that was the last corporate job. And then from there, I went, I must tell you, and I sat at my desk one day, and the Argus gets delivered to our desk every day because we work for the Argus.
Okay.
And here at 11 o'clock in the morning, we already see the Argus for the evening. And I go through the adverts because I was really at a crossroads in my life. And I saw an advert for the Western Cape Network on Violence Against Women. And they were looking for an office manager. Okay. And I thought I had no experience, but I want to tell you just a little step back. I was a volunteer for Rape Crisis at the time. So I worked in the corporate. I worked in the corporate, but I started my life in the gender sector as a Rape Crisis volunteer. So I was volunteering in the sector and then working corporate. And so, of course, I was at that crossroads that this job where the money did not fulfill me. I really want to do that full time. And so I applied for the position at the at Sarki Bartman Center with the Network on Violence Against Women. I applied for the position, and the then director calls me and she says to me after my interview, and she says, we really want to employ you, but we cannot afford to pay your salary that you are now.
Which is typical of an NGO, non-governmental organization.
Yes. I think things has changed a bit now, Saskemi. But she phoned me and she says, we really want to employ you, but we are aware of the salary you're on and we cannot afford that. And I said to her, well, make me an offer. And at the time, the offer was 1/3 of what I was getting paid in the
Wow.
And I said to her, I will take it. And she said, are you sure? Are you sure you're not going to leave us in a month or two? And I said to her, really, I won't. And I kept my word, because all I wanted to do was, I was tired. I almost felt like the corporate sector was very shallow. There was and the more and more I was in the NPO sector as a volunteer, I wanted to do that full time. I wanted to be a difference and make a difference. I wanted to do this so badly. So when I got this job, and I want to tell you, and I went home and I said to my then husband, I got this job. And he said to me, are you mad? How are we going to live? I said, that's okay. I know we will, And yeah, praise God. So, I mean, we've never lacked. We've never gone to bed hungry. Never,
What a story. So, and I know you've, over the years, you've been actively involved, in running and, various other things. Yes. So is that part of a hobby that you love, or was there a reason why you took up running?
So I want to tell you, so now I'm working for the Network on Violence Against Women. And then from becoming the office manager, I said to them, no, I don't just want to do this. I want to do the training part of the program. And I become training program manager. And so as we go out to train, I'm away for 4 days at a time, quite a bit of traveling and training all over the province, nationally. And remember, this was the time with the new Domestic Violence Act, then the Sexual Offences Bill. So I'm workshopping this legislation all over. And of course, I put on weight and I put on weight and I put on weight. I have no time for myself. I do not take time out. I'm working, I'm eating. There's no exercise, there's nothing. And then in 2011, I go up to be 116 Ks.
Wow.
But the doctor warns me about diabetes. I'm predisposed to diabetes. He puts me on medication, the metformin for diabetes. And I speak to a medical friend and she says to me, do yourself a favor. Don't start taking metformin. She says, change your lifestyle, go and walk. And then I want to tell you, from 2011, starting to walk, 2013, I ran the Comrades Marathon, which is 89 kilometers in Durban. So from an overweight couch potato, not taking care of myself, I then 2013 go on to do Comrades.
Wow.
Then after that, Sis Kemi, I wanted other women to experience what I did through running. Running gave me another boost of confidence, of crossing finish lines. I always equate crossing a finish line and the feeling that it gave me, you know, because I have my own personal experience of a gang rape, of being in an abusive marriage, of being sexually molested at the age of 6 years old. But you know, it's a constant. I was just on a webinar earlier where we spoke about trauma response. How do our body respond to trauma and how we react. And so running became my outlet and saving grace. So over the years, as I worked the sector, I also was triggered many times, and big things in my life happened. But then running became that catalyst in my life that shifted that for me. Crossing that finish line, losing the weight, feeling fit and healthy, just changed things for me. And I then established a running group in Bridgetown, in the area that I live in. And the club goes on to become one of the biggest in Western Province athletics, a 600 member strong club in the area.
Unbelievable. That was awesome.
Yes. So yeah,
So you spoke earlier on there, and I know you went through it very quickly in terms of the what's it called, your experience. But what I'll do is, because I want to focus on it and then move on to your foundation, but we'll come back to it in a few minutes about your experience, you know, with violence and rape. You said at a very, you know, young age of 6. So I want to, if you don't mind, when we come back from the break, we'll just, you know, touch on it. So we'll be right back. Wow, my sister, what a journey so far. You know, you are just somebody I have a lot of respect for, and the journey of taking 1/3 of your salary, using running, you know, as a way, you know, to lose weight and to gain confidence in yourself. The youngest of 9, you know, and gaining all the experience, you know, from your siblings and so on. Wow. And then back home to where you grew up and where you were born, living the glamour of, you know, living near the east side and, you know, the suburbs and so on. You have already had a lot of journey there. Before we had the break, you kind of just quickly went, you know, through, like in passing, and I guess, you know, it's kind of in passing for you now about how you were abused, you know, at a very young age. How is that been, you know, for you? I don't want to bring back the memories of then, but I'm sure you already, you know, have the coping mechanism, and like you said, you know, trauma session and things like that. How has that been for you, you know, now in terms of the work you're doing Has that been part of why you're doing what you're doing with the gender-based violence? How's that helped you, now where you are?
If I think back now, Sis Kemi, just taking back, talking about the 6-year-old girl, and many times when I'm triggered, but it took years of counseling, years of speaking in therapy, years of having to learn techniques. When I respond to things, I even ask myself, does the 6-year-old little girl needs attention? So I had a really great therapist over the years that used to sit me down and say, listen, we're speaking to that 6-year-old girl now, and then we speak to the adult me, so how does the adult me? So definitely what I've experienced as almost, it's part of my testimony, but it's also part of why I do the work that I do. Sometimes when I look back and I think, God, why was it allowed to be me and that? And then you say, why not me? But it took years of that acceptance that this is what happened. And, and I know many women, still has not dealt with their own trauma, their own past, their own hurts. But for me, it happened when I was 22 years old, when I had my first breakdown, like they call it breakdown. I was married with 2 little girls, and I ended up in Kenilworth Clinic. And so it was those years of trauma that accumulated. And then at the age of 22, it was like everything just fell apart, broke. I ended up in Kenilworth Clinic. I spent months in the clinic. I spent months in depression. But just to take you back to that 6-year-old girl, and often we speak about, and just today I found another book that I want to read, because I struggled with, when my mother found out, she hid it. She hid it from my father. She hid it from the family.
Because of the shame.
The shame that goes in families. Yeah. And like I said, I'm the youngest of many siblings. And so for years, when they were telling my mother she's letting me get away with so much that they didn't, I now as an adult look back and I thought that was a way of almost allowing for me just to do what I like. She didn't have the boundaries and things that she had with my siblings. But I can tell you that, and I want to speak to any woman who's watching today, and I know as mothers, I've seen it in the work that I do, mothers, the shame and the guilt, because why was I not there to protect my child? The shame that it will bring to the family. My father was a leader in this community, and so what if all this comes out? What happens to us as a family? And so that, but I want to say that the damage that it did to me as a child, as an adult, and how for many years, many years, and still does, it still triggers me. And just about 2 months ago, I told my story on another show. And my sister, who is now 73 years old, was listening to it. And she phoned me that night and she cried and she said, you are so brave. I'm so proud of you for telling your story. But what stood out for me was, for the first time, even though we all know what happened to her with the uncle in the family, was never spoken about. And then she could speak to me, she could open up to me. And I said to her, I know about it. And I said to her, and you don't have to pretend, even when there's a Facebook page about the uncle, you don't have to like the post. You don't have to say, oh, you have a good father, when you know the truth, And so it gave us an opportunity. I mean, now it's 73 for her to
have that conversation. Yeah.
Yes. It was really for me something huge that shifted in our family, because how the family almost didn't want to speak about it, everything that happened, you know. I can tell you a story of why I did not eat ice cream, because the perpetrator used to ply me with vanilla ice cream because he worked at the ice cream factory. And that came out in my therapy that I did not realize. And as I was a grown woman going through therapy, working through these things, and then it struck me, that's why I don't, you know. So those were the things that I took years to get through. And then when I was 3 months before my 16th birthday, I was gang raped and my friend murdered. But you know, the same thing with my mother at the time. After 2 weeks, my mother said, get up. You're Peters. We carry ourselves with pride. We get up. It was like it's happened and move on, you know, and just lift up your head and walk with pride, not knowing all the everything that I was sitting with. I mean, I still have physical scars of this incident, stab marks and marks all over my body. And that was my mother's response to it. My mother's response was when 2 white women came from a rape crisis to knock on my door. And I think that's why I started as my life in this sector as a rape crisis volunteer. 2 white women came, and I want to say to you, white women, because at the time, you remember, there was still apartheid in our country. There was still, so it was peculiar even to her. Why is 2 white women coming to knock on our door? Because the only time white people came to knock on our doors because there's trouble. Yeah. And so, but she didn't see it that this is not trouble this time. This is, and even that, Siskemi, I had to work out in my heart to forgive her and think it was an ignorance. And she says, no, we don't need you here to speak to her. We will speak to her, you know. But nobody ever spoke to me until I was 22 when I had my breakdown, you know.
Wow.
So, yeah.
There's a lot I want to unpack in there, but, you know, like, finding out through some of this program, we'll probably need another segment. So let me now shift. That was just some bravery stuff. And like you said, you know, I believe as well is a testimony, and in terms of like God has made you prepared, even though it was hard, tough. And thank God, you know, you had all the people, the therapists and all the people around you to do the right thing. But sometimes some don't even get there to where you are. They totally just lose it. So I'm glad that God still put in place other people, you know, were there for you at some point. So let's move, because that's a lot, you know, the gang rape and, you know, the loss of a friend, coping even with the grief and a lot of other stuff, you know, in there. That is just so much. And however, you're still able to forgive even family and, you know, and others as well, and probably, you know, the perpetrator as well. So what I want to jump onto now is why Callas Foundation? What is Callas Foundation about, and when did it start? What do you do with it? And what are some of the challenges as well, you know, and successes, you know, you've had?
So for many, many years, I worked in a job. I worked a job in a big organization. And then I'd still be doing stuff here in the community at night where I live. And then in 2018, we had a lot of gang violence in the area. There was just lots of violence happening. And so I dreamed, and God gave me, and remember at the time I used to see clients here at night. I used to work in my organization during the day. In 2018, God gave me a dream that people are hungry. That is why there's so much violence. And I honestly saw the hunger and physical hunger, you know. And so even though I can give them spiritual nourishment, I can be this, I can give them psychosocial support, they need to be fed. They need to be nurtured with them. And so in 2018, I drafted this whole vision for our organization. Our vision is to build resilient families. Yeah.
Right.
And so I started my journey with Callas like that. And I said, so what is it that I'd like to see, you know, after that dream? And one of the things was, because of the violence, I saw the hunger. I had this dream and I saw this hunger, and I called a friend and I said to her, Avril, I said, I don't feed. I don't do that. I do gender-based violence work. I said, I don't even know where to start. But if God has put something on your path and you're obedient, he places the other things in it. Yeah. And so I started, I will never forget it. So I'm busy cooking this big pot of soup. And my children said to me, where are you going to serve? I said, right outside the ice. They laughed because I said, no, God said I must serve it here on the stoop. And they said, you're crazy, anyway. And then that's how we started, from 1 week serving 60 liters of food that we now serve 300, not even 60. I think the first week we started like 120-liter pot in another 20-liter pot, that we now serve 300 liters of food daily,
Wow, daily.
Daily.
That's
Monday
a
to Friday.
lot of work.
Yeah,
That's a lot of work.
It's
So
a lot of work.
who funds you? Who supports you, with this? Do you get funded?
Individuals. Yes,
Okay.
and I just want to tell you, and then of course COVID happened, Sis Kemi. Lockdown happened, people couldn't move around. The second day of lockdown, we had people looking for food. And I said, why are you outside? You need to be inside. But I also realized they're hungry inside the house. And that's when we started serving food daily. I mean, there was times during COVID hard lockdown where we served 500 liters of food a day. We just couldn't keep up. But anyway, and so it continued, but through the feeding scheme also we started the support group for women, and we would meet in the yard, because in the line you could see the violence that was taking place, the abuse, and women had nowhere to go to. Everything was closed down, locked down. So I called a friend of mine, a funder, and I said to her, listen, I need a little bit of funding to start something with the women in the area. And she agreed. I wrote a concept note quickly and she gave me some funding, and we started the support group for women in the yard, because remember now everything is closed down.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's how, and then we started the campaign. I don't know if you saw the code word, the Cook Sister campaign that I started. So if you're in danger, you send me a WhatsApp to ask me if I sell Cook Sisters. And I say, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I can deliver to you. So that's how I know your address. So the thing was this, once you ask me for the price, I know I must call the police.
Wow.
So we had to learn to work out of the box during lockdown. And this is how Callas Foundation now just grew. We do psychosocial support, Sis Kemi. We do the court support. The court is a very daunting place. We see, conviction rate for success is not even 7% of our cases are successfully, successful.
That's disgraceful for us.
And many women, I just heard a woman over the weekend that phoned me and she said, I just gave up. I walked away from the case, So what we do court support. We take you through the justice system. The investigating officers, or the IOs like they call them, will know when I say it's Caroline Peters, I want answers, So I become the mouthpiece for many women who was raped. Last week we had a big success. A grandmother of 93 was raped and murdered. We opposed bail in the case. We had a petition. We delivered
93 grandmother.
93 grandmother.
In 2021.
Yes, by a 25-year-old. Yeah. Oh. And it's a step family member that did this. And I collected more than 1,000 signatures for the petition. We stood outside court on his third appearance. He abandoned his bail application. We were going to stay there until he must not get bail. So we do that. So you phone me and you have a case, and I drum up the support. I mobilize, and we make a noise. You see, Sis Kemi, it's almost like sometimes we do not take action. So even the investigating officer said to me last week, thank you for coming. You make it easier for us to oppose the bail inside to the magistrate when you rock up here with the petition and you make a noise, you know. So, and we highlight cases,
Women are taking action. Is that not because they don't trust the justice system that they will get justice?
Yes, that, and because the justice system is so delayed. You know, you will have 7 appearances before even there's a trial. I mean, some women's cases continue for years. Cases normally takes 2 to 3 years. So many women just give up. And that's why the rate of success, we see our DNA. I mean, I spoke to the IO and he says to me, they're busy with DNA for cases in 2018. Because I'm saying there's this case for 2019 that so the DNA is behind and justice is just not getting to the women here. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we'll stop for a break again, just a quick one, and we'll be right back. Wow. Previous segment, you shared a lot, in there. And for me, it's just so, what's the word? It's just so overwhelming when you hear, what is still going on in our communities, and with young boy raping a 90-something, or, granny. And I don't know. And it seems to be every day a normal occurrence, this gender-based violence. I don't know what the statistics is in South Africa at the moment. Maybe, even with the statistics, I don't think we want to dwell on that. But what can be done, to find solutions, to this issue, which seems not to be going away? Because you hear of the 93, and it seems it's common, and then you hear of a 3-month-old baby or 6 months, I can't remember as well, being raped, or a father hanging his wife, and things like that. And just there's just so much going on. I don't even know how you do it. That's the truth.
I don't know if you saw the girl that was chopped up by a boyfriend and put in the suitcase at the University of Fort Hare. She just happened last weekend, and this was a boyfriend. They had an argument. He murdered her. He chopped her up. He dumped her in a suitcase on the university campus. We had
and someone who knows her, not
someone who knows her. Yes, but that's what I always say. We always think that women get murdered by strangers. It's not. 7 out of 10 women that is murdered by people that was known to them. The previous weekend before, we had the case in Philippi where the 2 of them, they're not dating, but they were out for the night. They were socializing the night, and the next morning they found a body raped and murdered by the man that she was out with the night before. In the case of the grandmother, it's the step-great-grandchild that did this to her, Even
a relative.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah. So it's not, sometimes we warn our children, we warn each other about strangers, but it's not the stranger. It's
so
not.
What's the solution? How can we stop this completely, or even reduce it, where not the 7 out of 10, well, it becomes maybe 2 or 1? What more, can be done?
Sure. Sis Kemi, years ago, we had one of the things, our vision was to eradicate violence against women when I was still at the Network on Violence Against Women. And that always stands out for me because, I've been there since 1999. And that was one of the slogans, to eradicate violence against women. And I look at where we're at now, and it's worse. There's an increase.
The
yes, yeah. So what do we do? How do we do this? Awareness. It starts with me and you. It starts in our home. It starts with how we raise our boy children. It starts
I
with,
think that's part of the key. Yeah.
It starts what we say to our girl children. What is so things like that. So if we can start the awareness raising, education, social norms, things like that's another whole conversation, Sis Kemi. Yeah. I just want to tell you, one of the things you asked me was about my successes. How do I measure my success? I measure my success when I see women. That was a woman that looked down and out when she was here in my office 4 months ago. And I look at her now, confident, I look at a woman who I helped 2 years ago that is now driving. She said to me she's never driven outside the area. I look at a woman that sends me a WhatsApp and says to me, and it would come on the days when I feel the most tired. She says, "Thank you, Caroline. He was convicted today." 6 years, Sis Kemi, 6 years later, I don't even know who she is anymore. I look at women that has exited very violent relationships. That is our successes. When we see changes, I mean, right here in the community, everybody they know me as Auntie Callas, and they say, "Oh, Auntie Callas coming, you better not speak like that to your girlfriend." But it's about, then I know I've raised awareness, I've done something right. It becomes cumbersome and tiring doing this work year in and year out. I'm now 57, God willing, in October. And I always think, at what stage, at what age am I going to stop? Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. And I haven't asked a lot of other stuff, but I am happy with what we've asked. But if you don't mind, we'll be back to have a part 2. And because there's so much, for you to share, for our viewers, and to inspire other women and to just give them hope, as well, and for them to know where to get help, through people like you and other people that you're aware of, even if you can't help them. So I just want to say thank you for a wonderful, conversation and sharing your story. Not even half of it. I hope you're writing a book already, because you should. You have to. I want that to be your next project for you to do for yourself. For you to do as well for yourself, not for anybody else, but for yourself. Start writing down so that we, other women and generations to come, might say, "Wow, my granny Callas did this. My granny, fought for this, did that." So please, because we're fond of sharing our stories verbally like this, but what stops us, having it in form that it can be referred to from generations to come, and then it's in your own way. It's not about what other people have said. Nobody will write it for you. You will say it the way you want, because you could tell me a story. By the time I tell my sister Gwen about it, I've added or taken out from it what you said. I've maybe turned around. So, but if we know, it's there, we can always go back to it and refer to it. So, in closing, I would love you to just share any tips, advice, or any message to our viewers, whether women, youth, or anybody you decide to talk to. Thank you.
Thank you, Sis Kemi. So for me, in closing, I just want to say to the women, you are worthy. You are more than you think you are. I want to speak to the woman that tonight is still stuck in that abusive relationship. There are help out there. There are support out there. And if you do not want to get out, but just speak to another sister. I know we stay because of the shame, the guilt, and what if this is not going to work? Where am I going to? What about, but we are not just hurting ourselves. We stay on in marriages and we hurt our children. And so I want to say to women out there, specifically to young women also, to young women, I want to say, know who you are, treasure what you have, value yourself. Yes, God bless.
Wow. Powerful. You are worthy, and it's Women's Month, so we celebrate our women, our young women, and yeah, value yourself.
Yes.
Know who you are, and wow, powerful words, powerful story, brave story, and I know that the Almighty God will continue to guide, guard, and bless you and favor you in more ways than you know, because yeah, this is a calling for you, you know, even from a very, very right, you know, early age. And, you know, I might not get in touch with you regularly, but please know I pray for you frequently, because it's not easy. The work you're doing is not easy. Going to court, you know, fighting for this and that, and carrying the placards. Not all of us can do that. And hearing all the stories that I'm sure by the second time I'll just be crying and I don't think I can. You know, I don't watch TV anymore because there's just so much bad news, you know, out there. But you have to listen, watch all this. So God will keep lifting you up. And please have that support network system that you have as well for your own sake. Please.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. That is really, really important.
Thank you so
much for your time. And we wish you all the very best for the future. And yeah, so guys, that's all we've got time for today. Till next time, this is Mama Kay saying, I love you. Stay safe, stay blessed. And remember, God is love. Thank you.
Thank you.